Are you serious? LSU baseball head coach Jay Johnson did it again. Despite having a phenomenal 22 players drafted into the major leagues from his roster over the past 2 seasons, Johnson raked in the #1 transfer portal class and combined it with the nation's #1 recruiting class this offseason. Johnson even pulled 7 freshman signees who were top 100 MLB prospects to campus after they bypassed the MLB. How does he do it? Despite a relatively disappointing 2024 season where LSU fell short of returning to Omaha and also lost a number of players to the transfer portal, Johnson's roster is both fully rebuilt with pitchers and position players, and the Tigers will more likely than not be ranked in the preseason top 5 for 2025. I'm your host, Jay McMains, and right after a word from our sponsor, we'll hear Coach Jay Johnson as he joins Jeff Palermo and Todd Horne to break it all down. We'll be back right after this.
July is jumping at your East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Lots of books are being read as part of their summer reading program. Adults are finding the way of nature through Tai Chi classes, while little ones gear up for back to school with enrichment programs like Big Buds and Carver Cubs. And for teens, how about Twinkie Wars, Bubble Science, or Percy Jackson Trivia? Go online at ebrpl.com to learn more. That's ebrpl.com.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches.
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
The players.
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
The recruits.
Show some passion and some heart.
And those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
All those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU talk.
What a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and our hosts, Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo.
3 great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tiger Rag Radio. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. Jackson Blackman, our producer, once again tonight. Todd, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Got to get to our first guest joining us on the Max Home hotline, the head baseball coach for the Fighting Tigers of LSU, Coach Johnson. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Good to be on with you guys. How are you?
Well, it's great to have you on. I want to go back to July 14th, if you don't mind. It's a lovely Sunday afternoon in Baton Rouge, and you see William Schmidt's number pop up on your phone. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, it was an awesome day, awesome draft for our program. Got off to a good start there before the draft, and, really credit William and his family. They're great people. We're excited to have them at LSU, obviously, but it takes a lot of maturity to make a decision like that. And, he probably would have signed for $3 to $3.5 million in this draft, but frankly, he just wanted to come to LSU and wanted to be a part of our program. And, he and his family thought that this was the best path for his life and his future, and I commend him on that decision. And I got a picture of William, holding a stuffed animal tiger, and I basically took that as confirmation of we're bypassing Major League Baseball, and let's get to work. And super, super excited about William, and he's in there with a bunch of our other freshmen, taking a class and training hard, and off to a great start here.
Now, Jay, before we leave that subject, just really quick, the story I heard is he called you about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and your first response are you serious? Is that true?
Yeah, it was something along those lines of just making sure he was convicted. I'm a big believer if you're not convicted in your decisions, it's hard to know if they're the right one. But I feel like this was on his heart and on his mind for a while. We had several conversations. This wasn't just a surprise deal. Really wanted to give him the space to make sure he made the best decision for him and his future, and one that he'd be convicted in. And that was just kind of my last little test, before this all went public, that he was certain that he was in with both feet, and he is. And I'm really proud of him for that, and couldn't be more excited to be his coach here for the next 3 years.
So that makes him and 6 others who were top 100 signees that you got post MLB draft. So how do you do that?
I think a lot of it has to do with the players and their families. And, I'm not one to judge anybody's decision. I just will tell you that after doing this for my entire working career, I believe that college baseball and college is the best path to a long career in baseball and a successful life. I think what happens nowadays is professional teams have so much money where players can justify taking that route or the pro baseball out of high school route because of the money that they receive. And I'm not judging anybody for that, but the environment that college baseball provides, and specifically LSU baseball provides, I think is unmatched. And very proud of William and these guys that several were offered opportunities, but chose this as the best path, and very thankful to have them. And, like I said, as long as they're convicted in their decision of being here and are in with both feet, then I believe they made the right decision.
Talking with LSU baseball coach Jay Johnson, he's on the Max Home hotline. Let's talk about Jared Jones. What was your thoughts, as you're packing up after a tough loss in the Chapel Hill Regional, and I'm sure you're already starting to look ahead to 2025. What did you put the chances on Jared Jones actually being still a Tiger in 2025, especially when it seemed like he had a very good performance at that MLB draft combine about a week or two after the season ended?
Yeah, my heart would have said maybe like 50-50. My head said 0% chance. And, I again, with Jared, having the opportunity or fortune, I should say, to coach him for the last couple of years, he and I have a great relationship, very honest communication, both in good things, not so good things. I basically gave him my thoughts that if he were to be picked on the first day, that I would support him 1,000% in going. As you see, it's really tough to get picked on that first day. We were fortunate to have 3 players. If they were not, I still need somebody to explain how somebody with that type of physical skills, ability, that not only, has potential, but, put up 28 home runs over the course of an SEC schedule, hit over 300, in his first 2 years, played an excellent defensive first base. Like, I'm a little baffled how that player is not a first day pick. What I do have faith in is Jared just continuing to be himself. And I think he'll look up at the board next year and that won't even be a question, because I think he's a great player. I think the thing that I appreciate about Jared is he really believes in himself. And I also appreciate that, 2 years sometimes isn't enough. Like, this is an awesome place. And you think about his 2 years, he was a significant contributor on a national championship team and one of the best power hitters in all of college baseball this year. And was one of the primary reasons, we ended up turning the corner and having a successful season this year. And so I'm thrilled to have him back. Saw him yesterday, actually for the first time since he's been back, because I'd been out recruiting for a few days, and he's ready to roll and going to be great player for our team again, and great leader.
I don't think you've been recruiting for a few days. I think it's like few weeks, few months, it seems like.
I think it's like all the time is what it seems like. And Coach, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. I said, you've had 22 players over the last 2 years drafted in the major leagues, which is phenomenal. But you had a lot of transfer portal activity before you raked in the number 1 transfer portal class, according to several media outlets. You had the number 1 transfer portal class, but I think at one time you were down to 11 people on your roster. Did that surprise you that the attrition had dropped to that level, or was that what you were anticipating all along?
Well, I think you hit the first part of it. Is frankly the most important part of it. Last year in 23, we had 13 players drafted, 11 signed, and this year we had 11 players drafted. So when you have 22 players over a 2-year period exiting your program to professional baseball, you already have a lot of work to do. So those were kind of the guys that I would focus on, because they're the ones that had the success and made the impact. So frankly, I was more concerned with doing what we could to bridge some of the talent gap of those guys leaving. As far as the guys going in the portal, I mean, everybody has it's every player's career, and I respect that tremendously. And LSU baseball is just not for everybody. And if players decided that was in their best interest for whatever reason, that was okay. But yeah, at one point, there was 11 returning players on the roster. We didn't know how the draft would shake out with the high school players. We knew we would get some of them to campus. But my interest was replacing, all the pro players that we've lost over the last 2 years. And I think we did a good job of that. We have some really, really high-level performers at different schools, and we'll have some age and experience along with probably the best freshman class that I've ever recruited. And so I think it's an exciting blend of talent and depth. And, I think we got a really nice boost there at the end when Jared, who we just discussed, decided to return, and Michael Braswell, who has just played so many high-leverage innings in 3 years, 2 at South Carolina and last year for us at LSU. That was a really good boost, to add those guys to the guys that were returning, the very good freshman class, and the transfer portal guys that we've added. It really feel like it completed the deal, and I'm excited to coach this team.
So, Jay, Ashton Larson and Jake Brown are killing it this summer in the Cape Cod League. I saw where Ashton Larson batting over or right at 300 and made the All-Star team in the Cape Cod League, and I hear Jake Brown's doing really well. It just made me curious, how important is that for you in your development of the team over the summer, and how closely are you involved in not just monitoring their daily activity, but having some input on their innings played or their reps, if you will, at bats, what have you?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. I think last year was a little bit different, obviously, playing to the last game of the college baseball season and, the leverage of all of those games. And really this year, if you look at what we did on the back half of the SEC schedule, SEC tournament, obviously 5 high-intense games in the regional, you want to give the players an appropriate amount of time to catch their breath. But then there's some guys that maybe didn't play as much as they would like or you would have liked. Them getting out and playing is important. You mentioned how closely I stay in tune with all of that. Is very closely, very, very closely in tune with that. And, for instance, if you look at my main searches, Cape Cod League homepage is number one. And, tonight I'll have, 3 different players as games, up, and I'm right in tune with the at-bats. I'm looking at what they're doing on defense. And really, I want to be about development. I get it that at LSU it's about winning, but how we win will always be important to me, and that's through player development. And I'm a big believer for position players in summer baseball is really important, or a pitcher like DJ Primo, who's going to be very critical to the success of the team next year. He's doing an outstanding job up there. He didn't get as many innings as he would have liked, or even I would have liked for him this year. And I think he's thrown about 19 or 20 up there, highly successful, really improving, working on some new pitches. And I think it's invaluable and can really help and aid in a player to be more advanced for the Tigers their following season.
Coach, it's also Skeens Day, so you'll have to keep a track on what he does today in his first start post the All-Star break. Since you're bringing up left-handed pitching, do you feel like you got enough going into next season? I guess you never feel like you got enough, right?
Yeah, I think it's something that I really value. I do pay attention to having options to be able to manage the game properly. I take a lot of pride in that, especially on the pitching side, and largely because I was this, junior college and then NAI second baseman, I'm not really good at telling a pitcher, hey, you need to do this with your grips or get the ball to your glove or have a higher front side. But I do feel like I have a really good feel for the game. And when you have options to match up and to get guys in good spots for them to be successful, they can sometimes pitch better than their talent allows them to. So it is good to have options. In terms of where we're at right now, I think if the guys on the roster that are left-handed pitch to their potential, then we definitely have enough. So it'll be, big with Coach Yeski and them getting off to a good start. Obviously, I'm really excited about Kate Anderson returning. We'll get Jake Brown back on the mound a little bit. I mentioned DJ Primo. Connor Ware is a JC transfer we really like a lot. So we're excited about what we have at this point.
Coach, we're going to let you go. We appreciate it. We'll let you watch all those Cape Cod games and Paul Skeens tonight. We appreciate your time.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio, great conversation with LSU baseball coach Jay Johnson, who joined us on the Max Home hotline. A lot of good. What you got, Todd?
You think they're going to be in D1 baseball and Baseball America's top 5 in the preseason now?
I agree with what Jay said when the addition of Jared Jones was huge, because to me that stabilizes the lineup in my mind. That you have a proven guy that's going to hit 25-plus home runs, probably 30 home runs next season, a very experienced guy along with Michael Braswell. And I also thought the addition of William Schmidt, it's just huge. As long as this guy, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that he just kind of exploded on the scene. Like, he was a draftable guy entering his senior season, but then all of a sudden he's throwing 98 and he's got this major league spin rate on his curveball, and it just happens like that for him to be all of a sudden a potential first-round pick. Does that development continue? Pitching's a little finicky. I mean, let's look at what happened to Cam Johnson, right? He seemed like it was a can't-miss prospect. You throw him out there on opening day or the opening weekend, and he can't find the strike zone. So I'll admit, we've done a lot of shows during this whole transfer portal thing and them getting the guys out of Indiana State and the St. Mary's and all that, and I'm just
Utah Valleys
of the world, and skeptical of a lot of it when I'm seeing Tennessee getting kids from Ole Miss and power conferences,
Louisville,
whether it was going to work. But the fact that you got a big-time hitter in Jones, a veteran hitter like that, you seem like you're fairly fit in the outfield. I think getting the Dickinson kid from Utah Valley, I think that's big. Based on everything I read, he's one of the better college hitters, regardless of, even though he was hitting whack pitching, he's a legitimate hitter. I think, to answer your question, I think they'll be in the top 5.
I was hoping you would answer my question.
Eventually, I'd get to it. But if you would have asked me that question, what is this, July 20? If you would have asked me that question on June 23rd, I would have said no. Because at that point, we didn't think Jones was coming back. We didn't think.
Well,
we didn't think William Schmidt was going to sign with LSU.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. We didn't think Jones was coming back. Jay admitted he didn't think Jones was coming back, but we thought Griffin Herring was going to come back.
Yeah,
and of course that didn't happen. The interesting thing to me is that William Schmidt wasn't the only story. Derek Curiel.
Yeah.
He was a top 10 player, top 10 prospect, coming out of high school for the MLB draft. And he also made the same decision earlier than Schmidt did. So that was why I asked Jay how he does this, because it's amazing, and I thought his answer was good. But I have another question for you. How important or impactful or influential, say on a William Schmidt or a Derek Curiel, even though he's not a pitcher, do you think it is to see Paul Skeens do what he's doing less than or right at now a year after he was doing it at LSU and winning the College World Series in a phenomenal, probably the most phenomenal season any college pitcher's ever had?
Well, as we were talking about this in the break, to think that any pitcher, I don't want to say they're comparing themselves. Paul Skeens is so unique. I don't think there's anything going to be like it again. I mean, Steven Strasburg and his rise, and he had a really good major league career and won a World Series, is the closest thing. But for a guy to be throwing the 100 miles per hour and to have the movement on his breaking pitches, I just don't know. as we talked about it before, when you watched him at LSU, you sat there and said he doesn't belong in this league. He's just overmatching everyone. Now that I think he'd start the National League the Major League Baseball All-Star game.
Right, but and I agree with everything you just said. But if I'm William Schmidt, as an example, and you've seen him play a lot, I would be sitting there thinking, okay, maybe I could get $3 or $3.5 million, on being one of the first 5 to 10 players drafted. And in fact, I'm being promised that. But, I can make some good NIL money. I can go enjoy the next 3 years and not drive around on buses for 1 or 2 years or more. And I don't have to go all the way across the country. And then maybe in, 3 years, I'll sign for 10 or 12 million, whatever the going rate is, because Paul Skeens did it. I may not be a Paul Skeens because, like you said, no one is a Paul Skeens, but that's a perfect example of what I can achieve.
Well, Aaron Nola is probably more of a doable path. So I'm looking at so his last season at LSU was in 2014, and he was in the major leagues in 2015.
Yeah, so there's 2.
Yeah, and that you can make that quick. Now he pitched a lot of the 2015 season in the minors, unlike Skeens, who made just a handful of starts earlier this year.
And what did he just sign his
what was
contract
that?
for?
I was $172 million for 7 years.
Kind of a good investment.
Pretty good investment. I just think at this point, Todd, if I was a stud 18-year-old baseball player, which I would give my left arm for, really, to be honest with you, because that'd be pretty cool.
That might inhibit your ability to perform.
I understand that.
Go ahead.
I think I would go the college baseball route. I would want to. If I could go play at LSU or any of these other big time schools and enjoy that for 3 years or 2 years, depending, I guess, when my birthday is, I think I'd take that route over the minors. I really do. I think I would do that because I think it's the minor leagues. It's tough. It's not a good living.
Well, that'll be it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Coach Johnson, Jeff, and Todd for the discussion. We'll be back later this week, but until then, stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all your latest LSU sports news.